Hey everybody, welcome back. This will be part two of my look into the Tarot of Degrassi. Um, and just, if you're new here, if you didn't watch the first part, uh, I'm having a look at how the tarot can be used to do a deep dive into some of the themes and characters and situations that we see on Degrassi. And this is, Terry doing a tarot card reading, which she does in the first season episode, Carnival. So we left off with the Emperor and Snake as the Emperor. Um, the next card in the deck in the Major Arcana is the Hierophant. Now, the Hierophant represents institutions, dogma, usually religious, but not always. And I thought that Radich personified Daniel Radich, who is the principal for the first 4 seasons of Degrassi. And he's another adult character that was held over from the original Degrassi. In the original Degrassi, he was the English teacher, and then he became the principal, much as Snake does in TNG and later just Degrassi. All the different titles get kind of a little bit confusing after a while. Um, but Daniel Radich represents what I think are kind of the best and the worst traits of the administrator. He's bound by the rules and he's very set in his ways, and that sometimes leads to him following the rules so rigidly that when it requires some kind of thinking out of the box or creativity, he just can't do it. And unfortunately, in the case of Rick, and this is the reason that he ends up leaving or getting fired or whatever it was that happened there, um, the result was absolutely tragic because he didn't listen and he brushed off the student who came to him for help. So the Hierophant as a card um, is a bit of a warning about being too rigid in your ways and trying to follow the rules too closely. So the next card in the tarot deck is the Lovers, which, of course, represents relationships and all of the various things that you're going to have to go through in a love relationship. And I thought that the best representation of this card is Marco and Dylan. Now, I think that there were more long-running relationships in this show, for example, Spike and Snake, Christine and Archie, or even Paige and Spinner. But I went with Marco and Dylan because the Lovers represents a passionate relationship that's also stable and mature. I mean, up to this point, when they get together, Marco has really been kind of trying to figure out his identity. He knows he's not into girls. He knows he's gay, but he hasn't been able to really do much with what he's got. And his relationship with Dylan finally helped him be a little bit more sure of himself, at least within the context of the relationship. And it's the first relationship that we see that continues once Dylan is no longer a student at Degrassi. So it kind of takes place outside of the context of just the high school halls. And it's the Lovers, it's not just about romantic love, but about choices and values. And then reversed, it also represents insecurity and imbalance, which Marco goes through quite a lot. And it can be, once their relationship sort of started to fall apart and Dylan started seeing other guys and so on, that can be the reversed representation of the Lover's card. So anyway, sorry to stumble a bit here. The next card in the deck is the Chariot. And the Chariot is about, it's movement, it's action, it's just that drive to go, 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 go. And I thought that was represented by the first 2 episodes of season 6, when we have the love relationship, the triangle between Emma and her boyfriend Peter, who, I don't care. I don't care what anybody says. Peter is one of the worst characters on Degrassi, and his garbage never comes back to, there's just no retribution for that guy, and it really bothered me. But anyway, so Emma's dating Peter, and then Sean comes back, and this creates a rivalry between Peter and Sean, and ultimately really terrible results. And this is, the drag racing is the literal depiction of the energy that's embodied by the chariot. And reverse, the chariot represents obstacles and a lack of control. And so we see that represented in this particular episode, in these episodes where, yeah, Emma kind of loses control of herself and her relationship, and then all of the drama that happens, and then ultimately the accident that ends up sending Sean to jail is quite personified, is represented by this particular card in Degrassi. Sorry, I should probably do this a little bit more smoothly. Rehearse a little bit more before I record these. Strength is the next card in the Major Arcana, and that represents overcoming insecurity and self-doubt and taming the animal, so to speak. But you don't tame it with brute force. You have to coax it gently and be self-assured. And in the episode where this is in season 2, where Paige confronts Dean, and she uses the awesome power of rock to overcome the beast. Reverse, the card also means weakness and self-doubt, and she struggles with that until she can channel that energy into the song, and it ends up, driving him back. And there's a picture. He really does have an animal look on his face, and here she is confronting him directly as she performs. And now we come to the Hermit. Now the Hermit it represents a period of solitude and isolation. And this is what Spinner goes through seasons 4 and 5. After the shooting, he takes himself away because he feels guilty about what happened to Jimmy. And then he admits to Jimmy what happened, and he gets I was going to say evicted. He gets expelled from school, which isolates him from everybody, and they all shun him. And the Hermit represents self-reflection and spiritual enlightenment, as well as reversed, its loneliness and fear. So he does, once he kind of gets over all the finger pointing and blaming, he starts to look inside of himself, and he starts to go on to more of a spiritual journey through meeting Darcy. And whether you agree with it or not, the Christian group was there. They were friends. They made him feel better. They made him feel accepted. And he was able to start looking inward and trying to make amends for what happened to Jimmy. And eventually, after a while, Jimmy does start to forgive him, and they can be friends again. So Spinner really goes through that introspection and isolation that we see represented in the Hermit card. All right, now the next card is the Wheel of Fortune. Now this is always a really interesting card because it represents the way that things can just change on a dime. It can go either way. It can be bad, it can be great, it can be brutal, it can be wonderful, but it represents that everything can change at any time. So I chose this point where Rick gets humiliated on the quiz show because this is the point in the series where there's no looking back. um, I'm sure that there are other moments in the show when things could have gone differently. Say if he had left Degrassi after he hurt Terry, or if Raditch put a stop to the bullying. But it's this moment when he's humiliated, that he's humiliated publicly and on TV with an audience, that he just breaks. And they say one of the kind of platitudes of the card is be kind to people on the way up because you may see them on the way down. And fortune represents that wheel that's always moving. It's always up, it's always down. And it's unpredictable. And it's also not always positive. He descends quickly after a brief time where things seem to be getting better. That's an important part of the card's meaning as well. So I'm going to stop here, and I will be back with the next few cards in the deck. I hope you're enjoying this so far. Thank you.